Welcome everyone to the 15th episode of the 792 Sports Podcast. I am your host Hunter Williams, and before we hit the topics, we're gonna quickly hit on two games of Florida high school football from last night. Columbus knocked off Miami High 35-2. They are advancing to the regional finals. Good job on a hard-fought season for Miami High, making it to the second round. And Columbus is going to face Western, who knocked off one seed Miami Palmetto 21-19 last night. And again, congratulations to Palmetto on a hard-fought season. And they did pop a lot of wins. They just they lost to a team that came in hot and ready to play. So it'll be Western and Columbus in the 8A Region 4 final for next week. Of course, before we go ahead and hit in first round playoff games, Columbia was over at Ponte Vedra last Friday. I was at attendance for that game, and Columbia was able to rebound after losing 3 of the last 4 regular season games to knock off Ponte Vedra 14-7 in what was a very strong defensive battle for both squads. And there was a lot of rain, obviously, that probably did play into the factor of how this game was called and such. Overall, it did feel like, even though Columbia did get some pretty good offensive series from the start, early on in the game, it did seem like they kind of struggled to keep that keep consistent drives going towards the end of the game. But the one thing is they were pretty smart with turnovers. They had a few, but they were able to, with the defense, was able to step up for Columbia to essentially negate the potential issues that they would have had with those turnovers. Outside of course, the fumble on the 6-yard line, which resulted in Ponte Vedra's only touchdown. And then, of course, after a 4th down stop very late in the game, Columbia was able to run the ball, was able to run the clock out and got a first down, which sealed the game. Ponte Vedra definitely put up a pretty big fight, and totally respect out to Ponte Vedra for a hard-fought win. Columbia's going to advance tonight to travel over to Jacksonville to face Robert E. Lee, which we'll get to briefly. Of course, before we go, we'll go ahead and start. Speaking of round 1, actually, we had a couple of very intriguing results overall across the state. Pine Forest knocked off Baker County 35-28. Pine Forest will advance. Baker County season ends in round 1. Pine Forest will be, they'll be at home this week. Scambia defeated New Smyrna Beach 44-0. They'll host Mainland this week. Well, tonight, actually. Wakulla knocked off Suwannee 41-10. Wakulla will host Rains, who knocked off Westside 52-20. Godby knocked off Terry Parker in Terry Parker's first playoff appearance since 2000, 38-14. Seminole knocked off the defending 8A state champs Mandarin 59-32. Mandarin fought their way back into the playoffs this year as an 8 seed, but Seminole was too much for them. Lee knocked off St. Augustine 29-21. They'll host Columbia tonight. Mainland knocked off Pensacola, Washington 38-20. As I said earlier, Mainland will make the long drive from Daytona to Pensacola for their round 2 playoff game. Apopka knocked off Flagler Palm Coast 44-25. Nice job, Apopka. You actually, I picked Flagler Palm Coast in an upset there. You went out there, won convincingly, so tip of my hat to you. Bartram Trail dominated Spruce Creek 42-0 in their opening round. Bartram will face Apopka, which we'll get to that matchup in a little bit. Timber Creek knocked off DeLand 22-21. Timber Creek will play Seminole in tonight. A 1 seed got knocked off. Chamberlain 25-13 over Rockledge. Chamberlain will travel to 4 seed Tampa Jesuit in the opening for the opening round. Well, second round, sorry. That'll be tonight. And Miami Washington knocked off Carroll City 35-14. So yeah, a lot of very good games overall. There was some blowouts, but overall, you want to see some of these blowouts get taken care of early on, and then as you get deeper in the playoffs, the games start to get better. And now we'll go ahead and move into a couple of notable games for this week. We'll start with Gulliver Prep versus Miami Washington. This one's going to be probably, in my opinion, the best game in South Florida this week. Gulliver is going to, in my opinion, I feel like Gulliver gets this win. They're going to be playing at Tropical Park, which is basically a neutral site field down in Miami area. But Gulliver has been very consistent, as has Miami, Booker T. Washington. Though I just feel I have a good feeling with Gulliver getting this win. Columbia versus Lee. Obvious, and also I'll say with all these games, I did make the picks across the board. And you can check that out on our Facebook and Twitter. But I will say, I do like Columbia to get the rematch win here. And into the other game in that 6A North bracket, Escambia versus Mainland. I think it'll be close, but I still think Escambia can pull this one out at home. Port Sharp versus Palmetto. Palmetto, they really looked strong early on. They kind of seemed to stumble a little bit down the stretch. They lost pretty convincingly when they went up to Tallahassee to face Lincoln. Then they were down, I believe it was 24-10 last week against Braden River. And, maybe it was 23, but they were down to Braden River, who was a 4-6 team and the 8th seed, before fight their way back into this game. I feel like if Palmetto comes out there and has a similar start to the one they had last week, Port Charlotte will knock them off, and that'll be another 1 seed that falls. And we already had a 1 seed fall last night with Miami Palmetto in 8A4. Rains versus Wakulla. This one will be a pretty strong battle. I like Wakulla at home in a close one, but I would not be surprised if Rains was able to get the win. Bartram Trail versus Apopka. This is going to be another battle up here it'll be up here in St. Johns County. This one will be a good game. I can honestly see this going either way, but I will take Bartram at home in this one. Alsola versus Dr. Phillips. Another good matchup. This one is Central Florida. I'll take Dr. Phillips in a close one here. Clearwater versus Gaither. Something just tells me about this matchup. I'm actually liking the possibility of an upset here. I can see Clearwater getting the win here over Tampa Gaither. Even though, it's not like a very convincing feeling on it, because I realistically could see this game going either way, but I'm actually going to lean Clearwater in an upset, which is actually one of the upset picks I end up picking in the weekly picks. All right, 792 fans, we got a special last-minute guest. I'll be joined here by my dad and lifelong sports fan, Ray Williams. We'll be hitting on a little bit college and pro football before we wrap up the show today. I guess last week we had 2 top 4 teams that got knocked off with Penn State and Alabama both, and they were in the college football top 4 in the first college football playoff rankings, and both fell. Minnesota knocked off Penn State, this was a battle of undefeated teams, 31-26. That dropped Penn State down a bit, and I believe that put Minnesota into the top 10. I'll have to double check that later. But of course, the game that I think everyone was watching nationwide, number 2 LSU versus number 3 Bama last week. LSU, for the first time since 2011, actually was able to knock off Alabama in a 46-41 shootout. I got to watch a good portion of that game, as did you. What was your overall take on both teams?
Well, I thought LSU just flat out played Alabama. And, of course, turnovers were the big problem for Alabama. Right there in red zone, dropping the football like the quarterback did was inexcusable. Mistakes like that always going to derail a good game.
Yeah, there was also Alabama. They seemed to also be very undisciplined. I saw early in the game they had 12 men on the field. They turned the ball over. They got the interception very next play, but they had 12 men on the field, which derailed a turnover, which I believe LSU scored on that drive. And throughout the game, it was very clear that this is not a normal Nick Saban team that usually is built on discipline and not making mistakes, as Bama was making the mistakes that Alabama normally forces other teams to make.
Well, I think sometimes, when you come into a game, Alabama, if they're playing a team that's in the top 5 with them, it takes a mistake-free game for them to look well, for them to shine. And obviously, they didn't shine that day. I think it was driving Nick Saban crazy.
I was sitting there I was watching the game. I was like, where is the Alabama that I've seen for the past decade in these games? They normally they look good in these games. This looked similar to their Clemson performance. So this is now 2 very downtrodden performances in the past year against top-level teams. It really does raise the question, is this run for Alabama slowly starting to die out?
Well, for this year it has. I don't think we're going to see them tote the trophy home. But I think one guy said one time also, the reason we look so bad is because they were so good.
Yeah, LSU did prove they're better than I honestly expected. I felt the whole year they were probably one of the most overrated teams in college football, but they proved last Saturday they are as good as people are really projecting them to be, and it's looking like it's going to be most likely Georgia versus LSU, who's Georgia now in the top 4 in the SEC championship.
That'll be a good game.
I got to think right now, it's probably set up where if right now Alabama is at 5. If LSU knocks off Georgia, Bama likely jumps into that 4th spot. If Georgia wins, it keeps Georgia in there. LSU will probably drop to like the 3 spot. So it looks like it is going towards 2 SEC teams making it, whether it's Georgia LSU or whether it's Alabama LSU.
I'm ready. I want to see it. Bring it on.
All right, and this was a pretty packed week. I saw a lot of ranked matchups. First one, Indiana, Penn State. Penn State coming off that loss of their undefeated season last week. I'm thinking they pretty much bury Indiana this week. I'm going to say a 20-point win for the Nittany Lions.
Well, I'm not going to pick any points, but I agree with you. Penn State's going to probably have the bit in their teeth when they hit the field this weekend, and kind of feel sorry for Indiana. I think they're going to play hard, but I don't think they're going to be able to stay with them.
Here's another, the Michigan rivalry of Michigan State. This is always a matchup that seems, even though Michigan is generally ranked higher in most of these matchups, Michigan State always seems to come to play. Their coach, Mark D'Antoni, very good coach over there. I'm actually going to lean, Michigan's, they've been off and on this year, so I'm actually going to lean Michigan State in an upset here by 3.
Well, I think it can come to pass. That's a good bet. I don't know if it'll be by 3, but Michigan State always plays Michigan tough, just like those interstate rivalries go. And when they take the field, it's a toss-up.
Florida, Missouri. I've heard some good things with Missouri, but I'm gonna leave Florida in this one by 11.
I like Florida every time they take the field. If they take the field and play like they typically can, they look good and they'll win. If they go out there and play a half like Florida can do, they'll win the first half and lose in the second half. That's a history in Florida too. It's going to come down to mistake-free ball, though. No turnovers and a few penalties, and Florida has a chance to look good.